Welcome to Chapter 1 of Accounting 1. And in this chapter, we're going to slowly ease our way into the accounting world. Now, I often try and use analogies a lot when I teach, and I like to think of accounting a little bit like assembling a puzzle. And for any of you who are puzzlers out there, if I were to give you a puzzle and turn all of the pieces over so that all you could see were the backs, and I didn't show you the picture of what the puzzle was supposed to look like in the end, you would employ certain strategies in how to assemble that puzzle. You might start with finding all the corner pieces first. You might then start finding the edges. And approaching accounting is very much this way. We don't really know what the end product is going to look like, but we start looking for familiar features in the transactions, and as long as we can recognize those features and begin to fit them together, the puzzle will start to sort of shape itself. It's also like kind of learning another language. You're going to hear words that you've never heard before. You're going to hear words that you may have heard before, but you'll find that within accounting they're used in very, very different ways than how you have come to understand them. So I think that's probably the most confusing things for students right off the bat, is to hear something and discover that in an accounting world it has a very different meaning. So be patient with yourself. You wouldn't become fluent in a foreign language the first week or two of the class by any means, and certainly not even after the first semester. So be patient with yourself and know that these concepts will come if you are patient and give them the chance. So why do we do accounting? And what accounting does is it not only just keeps track of the money for a business, but it creates reports that are useful to managers, to investors, to creditors. And these reports have to be prepared in a way that is reliable and useful to those who are going to be using them. So who are those folks? Again, they may be the owners or managers of the business. We may have creditors, a bank looking to loan us money maybe. And we certainly have the IRS who will be looking to tax us on whatever our earnings are. So there is, of course, a process with this. We gather the information and we turn this information around again in a usable format to our stakeholders or users of this information. We do that by analyzing. Much like the puzzle that you see, you'll start to look at transactions the way you would look at those puzzle pieces. Does this look like an edge piece? Does this look like a corner piece? You will start to employ that sort of analysis when you start looking at transactions. Once you make the decision about where those pieces fit in the puzzle, you will start to put them in their place. And then the puzzle will begin to take shape and it will end up in a usable form, and now you will then learn how to use it once it's in its final form in the form of a financial statement. Now, as I said, these are going to be used not just internally, but by people outside of your organization, people learning or looking to perhaps lend you money, people potentially looking to invest money in your business. And they need to know if you are looking to invest in two businesses and you are presented with financial statements from these two businesses, you have to have some understanding of how these financial statements were prepared to know whether or not you can compare them to one another in deciding what might be a better risk, for example, or might bring a better return. And so there is a concept called Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, otherwise known as GAAP. And that is most frequently how you will hear it referred to as GAAP, GAAP accounting. And what GAAP is a set of rules. And those rules govern how we classify transactions and how we present the information in terms of our financial statements. Those rules are developed by the Financial Standards and Accounting and Standards Board, otherwise known as the FASB, and they sit around, they come up with these rules, and then they push this information out to the accounting world, who then incorporates them into the preparation of financial statements. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the process used by the FASB to develop a GAAP rule, so you can read this slide, but it's a process of having hearings and receiving comment and then ultimately promulgating a rule. Now, we are going to be working with just one kind of business this semester, which will make things easy. But as you move on in your accounting career, you will encounter different types of entities that are treated differently for accounting purposes. Now, the most common types that you will encounter are sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporations. In this semester, we're just going to be focused on the sole proprietorship. Makes it really simple. You've got just one owner. That person is going to be entirely responsible for everything that happens. And as a result, they're also going to be in a position to make all the decisions. They're going to be the final say in whether or not something gets purchased, whether something gets paid, what kind of product to sell, how much to manufacture, what jobs to take, what jobs to turn away. So I put this little graphic up here because, you know, it's really the person that's going to be overseeing all the aspects of the enterprise. On the other hand, or moving on from that, we have partnerships. Now, there is no formal structure to form a partnership, nor is there to form a sole proprietorship. Jumping back to the sole proprietorships for a moment, if I want to become a sole proprietor, all I have to do is wake up one morning and say, I want to be in business. What do I want to do? Really, all I have to do is just declare that I'm in business and start operating, and I become a sole proprietor. The only thing that makes that different from a partnership is that now you've got two or more people. There is no registration requirement. There is no nothing. These two folks can come together and say, I want to be in business with you. You want to be in business with me. Let's shake on it. Now, hopefully you have a little bit more discussion and there's more agreement than that. Shockingly, I often see situations where there isn't. But you don't have to. There is no one that's going to govern that and tell you whether or not your partnership is or isn't valid, because it doesn't have to be registered anywhere, and it's just up to the partners how things are going to run, and quite often there is disagreement about how that happens, and so without at least some structure to the partnership, they often implode. We move from there to corporations, and corporations are owned by folks called stockholders. You'll also hear them referred to as shareholders, and they own a slice or a share of the business, which is referred to as stock. Now, the stockholders themselves have limited risk. So let's say in the partnership situation or the sole proprietor situation, they manufacture a product that harms the consumers that purchase it or use it. The partners or the sole proprietors, as the owners in those entities or enterprises, are personally liable for any damage that is caused by the business. On the other hand, with a corporation, the shareholders are insulated. They are not going to be involved in the day-to-day operations most likely. They certainly could be, but merely as a result of being a shareholder. They are not going to be personally on the hook for any misdeeds that the corporation may engage in. By the same token, there is a decision-making structure that most stockholders have very little influence over. It's generally there's a board of directors and management that governs the day-to-day operations. So we will also look at different, not only different entities through the course of your accounting, but different types of businesses, for lack of a better term. We've got service businesses, merchandising businesses, and manufacturing businesses. This semester, we will focus only on the service business. So it's going to be pretty easy. We're going to be talking about sole proprietorships in a service business. Service business could be a travel agent, you could have a doctor, a lawyer, a computer consultant, anybody that's providing a service to another, to a consumer or another business. On the other hand, we've also got merchandising businesses. And in this case, this is a company that's going to sell a product. This is a company that obtains that product from someplace else. They are not manufacturing the product. They are simply buying it from one source and turning around and selling it to another source. So, most commonly you've got stores, the stores aren't growing the fruit, although some I guess might. But for the most part, they are just passing the merchandise on to the end user. Then we have manufacturing businesses. So these are enterprises that are actually producing the products that they will sell. So automobile manufacture, furniture, toys, things like that. And as you move further into your accounting study, you will learn more about merchandising and manufacturing, as well as partnerships and corporations. But for now, we're going to keep it simple and focus on sole proprietors in the service industry. Now, normally I would try and cut these videos into smaller chunks than I'm going to do today, but the rest of this chapter is pretty light lifting, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with this video through the rest of this chapter, because what we're going to talk about at this point are some of the career possibilities in the accounting world, and also to congratulate you for considering a career in accounting. Now, many of the positions in the accounting world do require advanced degrees, but many do not. And one of the things that really has come to light as a result of pandemic and COVID and all that stuff is the ability of people in the accounting world to remain fully employed and to be able to work remotely. It has also created new opportunities for that as well. So I think that you will find that accounting opportunities and flexibility going forward will be much greater than we've seen in years past. So with an associate's degree or a certificate, one might find themselves in the role of an accounting clerk, managing cash, could be working in accounts payable. One could be a bookkeeper where you are the on-the-ground person managing the finances on the day-to-day basis for a company. You might interface with an accountant that the company has hired to kind of work outside the organization, but for the most part, you are overseeing what happens on the inside. Now, the interesting thing about bookkeepers is not only could you do this for one company, but many bookkeepers, sort of freelance. And there are companies that would really need and benefit from the services of a bookkeeper, but don't have enough work to keep a single bookkeeper busy 40 hours a week. So for them to contract with somebody maybe 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week, that is far more cost effective. Meanwhile, the bookkeeper that they are contracting with generally will charge well in excess of what would be a typical hourly rate if this person was there 40 hours a week. The bookkeeper can develop an array of clients and kind of be mobile and freelancing, and all of these businesses get good quality bookkeeping services without having to pay for more services and more hours of somebody than they really need. So it's really kind of a win-win situation. If you move on beyond the community college level and you're looking at a four-year degree or beyond, yeah, the world of accounting is vast. One can work in public accounting, private accounting, as I said, governmental accounting, or even not-for-profits. Public accounting generally involves, and you most commonly, I think, see accountants in the public arena when it comes to tax time. But that isn't the only type of public accounting that public accountants offer. They also do auditing. They might do work within the legal system. Looking for, often forensic auditors are hired in divorce cases. For example, where maybe one spouse thinks the other spouse is hiding money. And so they will look into the books and records of one of the spouses to try and find the potential missing money. And that's a pretty interesting area of accounting for me, especially given my legal background. So they also do auditing services. They will go into companies and review their finances and offer assurance that the financial statements that were prepared are in fact accurate and prepared in accordance with GAAP. One can also be a private managerial accountant working within an organization and ensuring that from the inside, all the bookkeeping and record keeping is done in accordance with GAAP. And these tend to be much larger organizations where they're going to have accountants full-time on the inside. Once somebody is moving more toward a master's level with a license, looking at really being the chief operating officer is certainly within reach at that point. And this is also something that many companies need in terms of having a chief operating officer, but maybe too small to afford. This is an area that has it's becoming more and more common to see chief operating officers freelancing and maybe spending 10 hours a week as the CFO for this company, another 10 hours a week, and they've got several companies that they're freelancing for as chief operating officers. And it's kind of a nice way to have some independence as a financial professional and still get to do really interesting quality work. And again, we've got government and not-for-profits, so you're going to find schools, churches, charities, all kinds of things, that places that require accountants. And the demand is certainly expected to go up, and especially as it relates to auditors and accountants. Bookkeeping, accounting clerks are going to remain relatively static. This is a 10-year projection, 2016 to 2026. But by far, the bulk of those jobs in the accounting area are in the bookkeeping and accounting. So it's certainly stable. But we're looking at growth in the accountant and auditor area, as well as billing clerks. And now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can basically read these, but these are the next few slides, job descriptions of these various fields and what the kind of experience requirement is for them. What the job salary average is. And again, these are national averages. What we see locally and what you can command as a remote or freelance person is certainly going to be different. But I'm going to just scroll through these quickly. You can pause this and spend a little more time reading them if you'd like. And there we go. And that concludes Chapter 1 of Accounting 1.